us in our Mosaic FM radio.
Thank you.
My first question would be about the evaluation of the IMF for the current economic situation in Tunisia, especially the situation of our banking system.
The situation in Tunisia is now that there is a moderate recovery in place. Growth has not been strong, but it's been positive, which I think is good news at this point in time. But it's of course not strong enough to generate the jobs and the prospects that we all look forward to seeing Tunisians benefit from. At the same time, the banking system has a, I think, long-standing problem of fragility, which I think is being addressed by the central bank and by the government, but it's not going to be resolved overnight. I think the measures that are being taken are in the right directions, but I think it's going to take a little while for this measure to generate the improvements that are necessary. I understand that audits are now in progress and they will identify more specifically what needs to be done.
So, as you said, we need the cooperation of the government. Tell us a little bit about the discussion between the IMF and the current Tunisian government.
The relationship between the IMF and the government of Tunisia has been very close and very constructive. The IMF has completed its annual review of the economic situation of Tunisia a few months ago, and it will be presented to the public of Tunisia I think around the mid of November in an open forum. In addition to that, just yesterday we had some very constructive discussion with the governor of the Central Bank of Tunisia, where we have reviewed economic developments as well as developments with the monetary policy. We have been pleased to hear that the governor is optimistic again about growth for next year. We understand that the current government forecasts are about 4.5% of GDP growth for next year, which is very encouraging, and we certainly hope that the government will be able to achieve that much.
So for the moment, the IMF is playing the role of consultation. Do you have any actual plans in Tunisia other than consultation and giving advice? Did the Tunisian government ask it for financial support?
The IMF is engaged in Tunisia right now, both, as you said, in terms of providing advice to the government and to the central bank in terms of fiscal policy, monetary policy, to strengthen the financial sector and so on. In addition, the IMF is also involved in providing technical assistance, again in terms of fiscal policy and monetary policy. The government has not requested at this point financial support from the IMF. Our understanding is that there is no need for additional financial support for this year on the part of the government. As far as next year is concerned, I don't think we have a full picture yet. I don't think the government has a full picture yet. But certainly the IMF stands ready to engage in providing financial support to the government if the government were to request that.
As you said, Mrs., the IMF is concerned about the Tunisian situation, and you are close to the statistic and information. Now, do you have any recommendation for the current government in terms of their policies in creating jobs?
The government's policy that we think would be most useful to stimulate growth now is, first of all, to redirect public expenditures towards the most growth-producing activities. For example, one thing that we have been discussing with the government is the importance of accelerating the implementation of the investment program, which among government expenditure is the activity that has the greatest impact on growth and could play an important role in supporting growth this year as well as in the medium term. The other piece of advice that we have been giving to the government is also, of course, to pay attention to all of those structural reform that can in fact crowd in private investment, crowd in foreign direct investment, and accelerate the resources that the country can use to create jobs.
Now, speaking about another topic, regarding the companies of rating, there is Fitch and Standard & Poor's who said lately that there is some big uncertainties in Tunisia. How does the IMF conceive such reports?
I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to comment on the report on the ratings agency. However, I think that there are risks to the economic performance of Tunisia that we need to keep in mind. One is that Tunisia, as you know, is very closely integrated with the Eurozone, and perspectives there are not at all optimistic. I think that we project a recovery in Europe, but it's going to be slow and gradual. Tunisia is very closely integrated with the economies of the European zone, both in terms of their export, in terms of their remittances, in terms of foreign direct investment, in terms of tourism. And so there are risks to Tunisia from the development in the Eurozone that I think we all need to keep into account. I think another issue that may also be in the mind of investors is that there is a political transition in place. Tunisia has made a lot of progress in these political transitions, but I think that it's quite possible that investors are holding back, waiting to see what the next government is going to be after the election and what's their orientations in terms of economic policy.
A final question, Ms. Daniela. Does the IMF have any intention to have its first executive board in Tunisia?
I'm not sure I understand your question. What do you mean by executive board?
I mean, does the IMF have any intention to have its bureau exécutif, d'ouvrir un bureau en Tunisie?
Oh,
rep?
to have a representative of the IMF in Tunisia. We have not discussed this with the government at this point, but we have we are considering, we are discussing now with the government. We have not made a decision at this point, but I hope that we can make a decision quickly, to have one of our economists working on Tunisia, based in Tunis for an extended period of time, maybe 6 months, to provide, to facilitate dialogue with the government, to facilitate technical support for technical capacity building. Whether that will or will not lead to opening an office down the road, I don't know, but we're certainly keen to have a presence on the ground, and at least I hope that we will soon be able to decide to have this extended presence in Tunisia.
Ms. Daniela Grosny, thank you very much for your cooperation.
Thank you, and all the best. Sorry for not understanding your last